Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross. With me as always is Mark Ainley. Mark, you are dressed up today. Whew.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately I do have a wake to go to, but afterwards I'm headed down to Tony Arce. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the face of Chicago business. Awesome thing he's got going there between podcasts. They got a studio they throw these parties at. They got another rooftop on the north side they throw parties at. But Tony Arce, shout out to you. Face of Chicago business. Google it up. They got it's not even just specific to real estate. It's a whole bunch of just young and professional. So it's really cool. But you're dressed up too, Tom. Why?
Yeah, so I was at the NSBC lunch event, so I had to duck out early to make sure I made this recording. And then I was like, oh, Mark's make fun of me for wearing a collared shirt, and I go on the Zoom, and you're wearing one.
Yeah. We're very overdressed today, man. Wait, I got the funeral tomorrow, so we were recording tomorrow. I'll be in a suit tomorrow, actually. So,
all right. We have a long one here. This is a good one, so let's jump right in. What's our housing provider tip of the week? Yeah,
along the lines of what we have today, there's a lot of wholesalers out there that have a lot of inventory. That inventory is something that everyone's crying for right now. And if you're not taking down and the information of any wholesaler you might come across or calling on the signs on the corner and asking to get added to the list, then you're missing out on the opportunity for another way to kind of get a chance of seeing some of this inventory. So my tip today is to make sure you're networking with the wholesale community here in Chicago.
Easy enough. All right, let's jump in. Let's hear about our guest.
All right.
It's been a while. I've been trying to get this one.
Yeah. We've tried to record this for a while. This is an introduction by Eric Workman. I know he works for Renovo. We talk about that a little, but he's co-founder and innovator behind Kendall Partners. If you've signed up for some of his information, you might be getting his email, but they're a thriving real estate investment company out in the far western suburbs. He's going to tell us everything about what they do today. Without further ado, welcome Jeff Nydegger. Jeff. Jeff, excited to have you on here today. You are our first guest that's probably west of Randall Road.
Yeah.
Or that far west. And you're actually even from further. I believe you're from Iowa, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
First and foremost, Cubs, Sox, Cardinals, Kansas City Royals. Who do you even root for, man?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. When you grow up in Iowa, central Iowa, you got to pick a team, right? Because we don't have anybody. So diehard Iowa Hawkeyes fan. And I get some boos and a lot of nays, or a lot of yays, in the Chicagoland area, yes. But I grew up a Yankees fan and a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So I've stuck to them for, I guess I'm 40, so probably 30 years to both.
Well, if you're not connected with Bebek Das yet, we got to connect with him. He's a big Yankees fan. My son actually came home from the ball 2 weeks ago with his first fitted cap, new era cap, and it was a Yankees hat. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
My man.
So I did the only thing I could do was send a picture to Bebek. But
we just took our family and just, on the summer trip, and we just came back from the new Yankee Stadium. I was at the old Yankee Stadium about 20 years ago. And so to see the new Yankee Stadium was quite the sight. So pretty awesome.
Yeah. Trump was at Iowa versus Iowa State last week.
That's right. And Hawkeyes won, baby. Come on. It's a Hawkeye State.
Well, talk to us. Tell us how you got into real estate. How, you've been doing this for a long time. You're a pre-recessioner investor. So talk to us how you end up from Iowa over here and kind of what you're doing and lead it up to here.
Yeah, sure. It's a long story that I'll make short. But yeah, after high school, I joined the military, or actually during high school. And that took me to Washington State. I spent, that was 2001. So right in September 11th happened, which we just passed that 22nd anniversary. And so that took me as the first about 10,000 active duty soldiers to Iraq in 2003. I did that and then had some special training, and then was getting ready to go and do some other special training. And they sent my platoon to the mountains of Afghanistan. So I spent about, I think it was 25 to about 30 months deployed total in about a 3-year period of time. So, and I got married at 19. So it was an interesting period of time for our young lives to grow up quickly. And after I got out, I got a job here outside of Chicago, and I didn't love it. And so I said, well, what better to get into but real estate? Always wanted to get into real estate. And I read the simple books that everybody else does, the Flipping for Dummies and the J Decimas and all those types of things. And so Kevin and I, who are family, my wife and Kevin are cousins, started this thing called Kendall Partners 2007 with not much money and a lot of ambition. I went in full time and Kevin followed right behind me.
That's awesome. I'm learning things that I didn't know about you.
Yeah.
You're in the military. How did the skills, I mean, you thank you very much for your service, but
My pleasure. Yeah.
you went through a lot. You saw some shit. Like, how did some of your experience in the military translate to running the successful business over the last 20 years for this? Like, what does that look like?
Good question. I think for me personally, it was just, being in the military, and I know the military has changed over the years, and every 20 years we say it's something different than it was. And I think that's true. But I think I grew up with a fairly disciplined background just because my parents worked hard. They still do. Well, they're retired now, but up until retirement. And so just the discipline to have the grit to see things out. And so that was instilled in me and never left me. It served me really well in the military. I was a pretty hard charger and kind of climbed the ladder, if you will, through the ranks, so to speak. But I think as you apply that to business, you just kind of view it differently. And I'll be honest and say that time overseas was an interesting time as a young man, young adult, young leader. And I took all those challenges and said, I'll do it. And so I've tried to lead with this go first mentality. And I'm not perfect and I'm not the best. I'm just like, I'll raise my hand and say, use me. I'll go try it first. And then other people tend to follow. So I think we lead with that mentality here. And we still say we're not perfect. Humility is a core value of ours, but we're determined, we're committed, and we don't quit. And we also view things through this long lens of, we need things for here and now, but Kevin and I, my business partner, we're always talking about what we're looking for in the future. So we have this long range planning and this like-mindedness in terms of this forward thinking and what's going to happen in 10 and 20 years. Serves today, but then how can we build something for tomorrow?
Yep. All right. So let's go back to getting this off the ground, right? So you and Kevin, it sounds so easy, right? Hey, we want to get into real estate. And so we did it. You don't have any real connections here. You're still young. You don't have any experience in real estate. Talk to us about like just the 6 months of, or whatever that timeline is, of getting this thing from concept to here we are, we're incorporated. Here we are, we're doing our first deal.
Yeah, of course, there's a story, right? And I'm never wanting to be the guy that makes it sound like it's, rainbows and ding dongs. A lot of challenges, a lot of, I wouldn't say sleepless nights. I think that's written in a lot of books. That wasn't my experience personally. My wife and I were on the same page. But I think when you start like any journey, whether you read a book or you get some experience from someone else, Mark and Tom, if you were teaching me how to do this, you could share with me your experience on how to do it if you had the experience, or I could go read a book or both. But there's always this gap between that reality, how it's going to work out for me. And so that's when we started this. I actually bought a real estate education product back in 2007 called Nouveau Riche. And they've since gone out of business and maybe transformed into something else. But, at the time it was like $25,000 to buy this educational product. I'm not really that guy that buys into that kind of stuff. I figure I can do it on my own. I did see this as a way to kind of get there quicker. And so we bought it and put that money on credit cards. We didn't have that kind of cash. And so I think that put some pressure on us. In addition to the pressure of not being employed, which I'm a maverick profile, so I'm okay with most of that. My wife was okay at the time with no kids. Things are easier. But I think it was, it's like anybody. It wasn't like instant success. We bought a house, made $10,000. This is out in Dixon. So, Mark, you talk about Randall Road. How about Randall Road Cluster?
Lavelle Reagan, no?
Yeah, Reagan's birthplace.
That's right. I actually think it was his, truthfully, it was like 3 doors down from his house. So birthplace Walgreens or something, but I don't think so. I think we bought it for 40 and sold it for 70 after I killed myself there for 90 days, slept on basically a dirt floor in the basement. But so we did all that, made 10 grand. And then, but I want to say this, our second deal, thinking that you go bigger and better or just scale what you're already doing. we bought a house in Oswego in 2008 and end of 2007. Put it on the market in 2008. Basement flooded after we finished it. The well went out. We had to redrill a new one, 800 feet deep, by the way, 800 feet. So all these things added up to, catching a falling knife on pricing, thinking it's worth 250. We ended up selling it for, I think, 210, and we bought it for 150. Bought it right. Again, I did all the work, or the majority of the work, lost $55,000. So that's the reality of a $10,000 to the positive, which if you do the math is probably like $15 an hour for me. But so I could write a book on that, just saying it's not all, instant success. And then we had the challenge of this market, right? Of this crazy 2008 market where it just kind of fell apart.
Well, you listen, for context, a lot of people's wells are 150 to 200. Mine's actually 600 feet deep, which I thought was amazing. Like 800, that's a big freaking problem.
My God, $16,000 problem in 2008 for us. I'm sure that's 36,000 today.
Yeah. So, you're the second person in the last couple of months that went through the nouveau riche, wrote that check. Actually, they never wrote the check. They put it on credit card just like you did.
Mm-hmm.
The people still have that option today to go write that check or put it on credit card or kind of buy what people might seem as a jump start. In hindsight, what's your opinion on that? And what did you take away from actually the nouveau riche product, or was it just forcing you to get involved and justify price? Talk to you a little bit about that, because there's other people that are considering different moves like that.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, for me, that's not a route that my wife and I would normally have taken. Just meaning like it, I called off a roadside sign and I listened to the voicemail about 20 times, and I thought there might be an opportunity here. And I was looking for a way out of my W-2. I'd only been there for a few months, but, I wanted to start something, but there's that again, where you're at and where you want to go is this big gap. And I felt like it was forever, this Grand Canyon between what I wanted to do. When I went to the hotel convention center and heard the pitch, I really thought there was something there. And so long story short, we ended up, like you said, spending the money, putting it on an interest-free credit card. I think we did it right. If there's a right way to finance stuff on credit, never paid $1 in interest. My wife loves telling that part of the story.
You're building your credit too. You're building your credit.
Yeah.
That's another optimistic way.
And I actually told my wife, I said, all this discipline that you've had for the probably the first 3 or 4 years of our marriage, 5 years of our marriage, paid off because we were able to have, qualify with good interest and get 0%. So, I think it was a good move for us. I ended up kind of getting Kevin into that too. He ended up spending $25,000 actually as well. So that was $50,000 for the partners, if you will. And they were in a very similar boat, younger, just had their first child and their first house. So we were all kind of starting off. But it put this pressure on us because we felt obligated to, steward this new education that we had. So we did it. We took it, went to Arizona several times and learned from, guys like yourself, I guess guys maybe like me today that have years of experience and are willing to share and educate. It was real education. And we took it back here to the Chicagoland area and started doing what we did. Now, again, we ended up losing $55,000, but I wouldn't blame that on poor education. I'd blame that on how do you ever prepare for a market? And I didn't go to college and Kevin did. So I think the $55,000, while it was scary at the time, I looked at that and said, that's my education. So I can learn a lot from this lesson. We had some family members that borrowed, actually a family member that lent us the money. And they said, I'm not concerned about it. I know you guys are going to pay it back. You're onto something big here. That was very encouraging to us because they could have said, how are you going to pay it back? I want it back in a month. And they gave us time and gave us grace, and we paid it off. And one last thing to that story, we did end up taking a short sale class, and we sat in the front row. Kevin's personality is more of a back row guy. I'm more of a front row guy, just our personalities. And the guy came in and said, well, I'm glad you guys are all here. 99% of you will never use this information. It's just the reality. And I heard opportunity and Kevin heard, oh crap, right? This is an issue. We brought that short sale strategy back to the Chicagoland area, and no one knew what really a short sale was back in 2008. And we did hundreds of short sales. And I would say we were one of the leaders where we were able to help the folks out of a tough spot, really at no cost to them, negotiate the debt. buy and sell the house the same day with no money. We did that for about 2 or 3 years. We did hundreds of them with no money. I mean, it was just our time. So that really was what got our, I guess, chapter 2, if you will, got us off the ground and got us cranking and really pushed us to where we're at now.
I'm running recruiting right now for GC Realty, and I saw a resume come the other day, and most of the time people have an education section on there, and this guy put on their education, no formal education, but bombed out of 2 businesses before I was 24, losing over $300,000. That was more than I would have ever got for college. He worded it, I'm paraphrasing it, but I'm like, man, I want to hire this guy just because he's awesome for putting that on there. So
I would agree with that. I love that. How much is real world experience worth if you've learned from your lessons and taken it, right? If you just continue to fail, that's one thing. But if you're getting better every time, I think we all want a little bit of progress, a little bit of momentum.
I'll say one more thing to that. I think people that might not go to college or not, I think when they do, or they might learn those real life lessons, they bomb out. But I think when you go to college, I think sometimes there's a level of conservatism that gets put in you that you actually don't take some of those chances as well too, because it's like, the ignorance is what actually helps you take those steps sometimes. I'm not condoning no college here by any means, but I think the difference I see with people.
But I would agree with you, and I would say we're not condoning that, but I would say my opinion is that it's not one size fits all. And I think that whether you're 40 or 20, it doesn't really matter. If you're looking to pursue something, like find yourself a Mark and a Tom, or maybe a Jeff and a Kevin type thing to mentor you, or go out and pay for good education and learn and then use it. So I think if it's good quality information that you're getting, wisdom isn't, those aren't always equal. But I think if you're determined to succeed and you have this mentality of not quitting, that was our mentality. I put myself in a position where I said, I don't have a choice. I told myself I'm not going to go back and get a job. And I'm not saying that we all need good people, but I really was that hard on myself. If I'm not going to get a job ever again, I don't ever want to work again. And I had a W-2 for 9 months, and I don't want to look back, honestly. So I'll create a job.
Burn the boats.
But let's talk about this. You just lost 55 grand. You're 25 in the hole at class. Talk about the next deal, right? All right, cool. Let's try this again. The market's falling apart. You got to be going to, you going to a party, everyone's gonna be like, you're nuts for being in real estate, right? I remember this. I was lending in 2009 and 10, and people were like, to who? Well, how? What are you doing?
Yeah. We were in an elevator with my father-in-law, and I'll never forget. My father-in-law is a salesman, and he loves to introduce, his son-in-law, and he's introduced this old man who we didn't know, older guy, and this is my son-in-law, and his name's Jeff, and he's got a real estate business in Chicago, and he's buying and selling. A very proud father-in-law for son moment. And this old man said, "What the heck are you doing in real estate?" I was like, "There's blood in the streets. What are you?" I'm thinking, yeah, I think I'm on the right track, because I've always had this little going in the opposite direction type contrarian type mentality. It's served me pretty well from getting in while people are getting out type thing. I'm not always early, but I'm not last. That's what I'm saying. So the next deal, because we were in this short sale mentality, that's what the market provided us, right? Everyone was underwater. And our company's called Kendall Partners. We are established here in Kendall County, even though we buy in about 7 counties of Illinois here in the greater Chicago area. We were one of the hardest hit. Kendall County was one of the top, fastest growing counties in the nation for almost a decade. It was really overbuilt at the time, had these big, beautiful houses with no one to afford them and no one to live in them. But somebody owned them, and, it wasn't Bank of America, it was Mrs. Jones, and she lost her job. You know the story. So we were able to connect with folks, and I think we provided a good service. There was really no harm, no foul, because we negotiated on their behalf for free, really. And we said, if we're successful, we'll buy it and we'll make our money by reselling it. We disclosed everything. But that next deal, I think, was in Bartlett, and I met with the seller, and difficult situation. Hours and hours of conversation. It's a family. They're losing their place. They don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Let's face it, I'm 24 years old, and I can't really life coach a 45-year-old couple, through the next journey in life with their kids. But I just said, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to get this deal negotiated. And they put their faith and trust in me and Kevin. And I bet I talk to her every other day about life and about the bank and about HSBC back at the time had this particular loan. And she had a second through Aquin. So we got really good
I haven't heard that name in a long time.
we got really good.
Was it like 120% LTV?
Yeah, exactly. It was actually. And we were really good at that at the time. And so we were able to buy that house. And honestly, our process was we would negotiate the debt, get the payoff letter, and then in the back, we're working on MLS to find a buyer. And so we did that. And then we basically just did a dry fund double close. And the title company allowed it. They loved it. The paperwork was in place. They funded our deal, cashed us out of the middle. So the seller got cashed out and moved on. The banks got paid. And then we'd take, our cut of the middle, which honestly was anywhere from $6,000 to $50,000. But when you have only your marketing cost and a basement office of my house, you can do pretty well with that. So again, I think we provided good service. I think the timing was everything. And I think we were kind of on the forefront of that short sale. I don't say trailblazing, but kind of were. And we did that for 2 years until we said, hey, it's 2010. I see light at the end of the tunnel here. Looks like we might be able to go to the market with some of these and rehab some of these houses. And so we jumped back in like most people do into flipping. And we're buying and remodeling and reselling with a crew this time instead of Jeff swinging the hammer. We actually hired it out.
How were you finding your short sale clients back then?
Notice of default. So 90-day lates, 60-day, and then we got good at that. And, everyone was buying, maybe 2009, people were buying the 90-day notice, the lis pendens, which is public information when you're 90 days late, right? They post that publicly in your newspaper, online, and then you get record information services, which is a company out here in Elburn that gets all that information. They actually used to go to the county courthouse in every county and record it by hand. This is before it was all online, right? Scanned in and filed. And I used to meet them there so I could get the list right when it was fresh. And I had a deal worked out with them. So as soon as it got filed, I would go and mail to them. We actually went door to door to several, which was interesting and awkward at the same time. But so we were first, and I think we were nice guys and told them who we were and how we could help. And we didn't try to oversell it. And when you're in a situation and you're losing your place, I'm not saying what are your options, but what do you do? So
when you're knocking on the door of these people, like, what do you say? What's the message? How do you get to their level where you can build that trust? There's
you get a younger version of this because it's almost 15 years ago, right? So you get a kid basically on your doorstep saying, "I'd love to negotiate the debt of your house. I hear you're in trouble." I mean, you don't say all that. You don't call out all the pain, but that was my first touch of sales, really. My parents always said, you're always going to be a salesman. I'm comfortable in front of people and talking, but Kevin and I really wanted to help them. So how do you convey that on their doorstep when you know that they're behind in their mortgage? It's bringing things to light. And we tried to do it with discretion, right, and professionalism. But we just said, hey, this is a success we've had. We didn't do that as our first deal, right? We had a couple under our belt. We used them as our case studies and said, this is what we're doing. This is how this particular deal went down. We think we could do the same for you if you'd be interested. And people would be like, let's sit down. And it was kind of just like that because they were like, hey, I owe $350,000 on this house. We think it's worth about $260,000. I might think it's worth $220,000. And I said, well, let's just see what the bank thinks. Right. And so they're in a tough spot. You know how the whole thing went. On the front end of the short sale journey, it was hard because the banks were real tight with their numbers. 6 months into it, when the economy was really at a tough spot, GDP's down and everyone's losing their job, they were more like, okay, let's talk to these folks on the other end. But at the time, I didn't know the difference between gross profit and net profit. That's a true story. I really didn't. I just didn't know some of the basics. I remember a lady asking me, and Kevin always, we have a pocket door between our offices. I'm pointing over here, but I admittedly so. The lady said, hey, is that the gross or the net on the HUD back when we used HUDs, right? I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, I think it's the gross. And she's like, well, she was nice. Can you confirm that? I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Right. So that's how I learned. I just learned like anybody else would learn and cut our teeth doing it that way by real world experience. And we just kept going. We just kept, that was the port or the whole point. We just kept working at it and getting better.
I remember one day I was talking to call it a secretary at an attorney office, and she asked me the PIN number. And I go to tell her the PIN number, and I said, 324 445. And she's like, no, it's 22. Like she was like aggravated that I didn't do the 01 34 9222. Like, and ever since then, I've always been kind of scarred. Like she knew right away I was green because I said it that way. And she was kind of almost aggravated because I wasn't speaking her language. But I learned that day, like how you rattle off a PIN number.
Exactly. Yeah. It's those types of environments where, we just kept doing more and more of those short sales. And it was just two guys literally in a basement on the phone with banks all day long. We had a whiteboard like the one behind me. And I put some vehicle pinstriping up, and we had about 50 or 60 going. I mean, one time, one falls off, two go away. We buy three, sell three. It was really our only time we ever really wholesaled, if you will. Because we never really took title of the property. I guess a few we probably bought and sold them, but it was the banks and the title companies loved it. It was easy for them, and they shut all that down in 2010. By the way, First American said we can't dry fund these anymore because I think coast to coast they're having people bail, and then the little old lady with the negotiated short sale is sitting here waiting to close, and the end buyer who was funding the entire transaction couldn't get financing or whatever. And I'm not actually buying it, right? I'm just here playing the middle, and then it blew up. So
it sounds like you hit the sweet spot for short sales, because there was this period of time when it first came out that the banks and everybody was understaffed, the lenders, where they couldn't do it. It took forever. And then you hit the sweet spot where everyone kind of started figuring it out and started moving things through. You had more people doing. And then you got to a point where on the back end where they started reducing some of the staff, some of the values started going up, and they started figuring out all the scams and all that stuff. So it sounds like you hit the sweet spot, like time-wise.
I think we did. And I think you mentioned, Tom, you joked about Ocwen Financial. They were in Florida at the time, and HSBC and SPS Finance. Yeah, SPS Financing. A lot of these third-party or, I guess, subordinate type lien, they were always staffed up because I hate to say they knew what they were doing, but they wrote a lot of these speculative type deals. And so I think they were kind of waiting for the cards to fall and for Jeff and Kevin to call and say, I'm here to negotiate a short sale. And they're kind of like, yeah, we're waiting for this. So let's get it done here. So we can get this off the books.
Before we move on, just any stories of, I know from my experience during that time when we're doing preservation work or doing the BPOs and the inspections, like, man, we had some people call the cops on us. I had somebody pull a rifle on me. Like there's some crazy stuff that, just an angry person, like, walk out my property type stuff. Like,
oh yeah.
Any of those stories? Anything that ever happened interesting?
Yeah, I had a guy in St. Charles, again, for reference point, for those that don't know that are coming out of the city, that is actually on Randall Road or real close to it. So it runs right through it. So St. Charles, a guy and his wife, and a really good area, 7th Street. I'll never forget the street. And really a pretty good area, kind of up and coming. But back then, every area was kind of just falling apart. But the house was in terrible shape. I go to negotiate with him and his wife, and he, it really wasn't negotiating. He was really telling him about the process and how we could help, and then telling him the time frame and how really we have limited control, right? We're just kind of their third party that they're trusting, right, to represent them on their behalf. So we can chat with the lender and right, there's signing certain documents, so I have control over that. But he wanted to always, I went to his house 2 or 3 times and sat down, and him and his wife, and it wasn't the cleanest of places. He wanted to go in the basement every time and show me his Python collection. The first time I went down there, I was being nice, and he had these paint tarps over these aquariums that were let's call them kennels. And he actually had pythons in the basement, this old limestone basement, and had 3 or 4 of them. He pulls the top off of one and shows me, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm trying to be nice. Pulls the top off of the other, and there's nothing in the kennel, and it's behind the furnace in the basement. And there's this python that's probably 10 or 12 feet long. It's a good 3 or 4 inches. And he wasn't freaking out. And I'm not scared of much, quite honestly. But I was like, this thing consume people? Is that why you brought me down here to? So just strange situations. I think that you archive in your mind, like Mark, your story there. It's like, you remember these things. And you just got to know that people are so unique. And just there's so many stories. There was so many deals of unique situations. I had another one where I opened the door knocking, And a lady said, yeah, just a minute, let me grab my husband. And there was something odd about it. And as soon as she closed the door, she had a screen door still open. Two dogs, I think they were like, I think Kevin called them like giant poodles. They come up to about here, jumped and leaned over the door at me and were chasing me through the yard. I mean, that was intentional. She let them loose and had them come after me. And I thought, okay, so you could have just told me no and not, tried to attack me with your thinking, giant poodles. But we didn't do much door knocking after that. I was like, you know what? We'll just call. We'll just send an email, send a letter.
Crazy. It's all animal stories. It's awesome.
Always animals. Yeah.
So let's talk about the journey and continuing here. Because I bet you there's a lot of listeners who are saying, oh, like, I was too young back then. I didn't get a chance. Like, man, Jeff is so lucky. But like the story doesn't end whatsoever. Like you guys do short sales. You see that this trend is changing. You guys keep plowing ahead. Like talk about the success after this. Call it, put us in like 2011, 12, et cetera. Like what are you guys doing? How are you maintaining profitability, et cetera?
I think the general, I guess the theme, if you will, and I can kind of zoom out a little bit, and just from my role, and Kevin and I have always had pretty distinct roles. We didn't really have titles at the time besides president, vice president. That didn't mean much to us. I mean, 50-50 partners, we did it together. We had different approaches to how we handled things, but I'm definitely if we talk EOS, Mark, we talked about this a little bit. I'm definitely the visionary, and he's definitely the integrator. I'm really more of the innovator, if you will, the CEO and innovator, and Kevin's more of the COO type that drives the details home. But I say that to say the theme being that we continue to pivot. And I think for the young person or the young person in business, whether they're 20 or 50, but the new person to getting into something, I think having options and not trying to put yourself inside of a box that said, this is what I do, and this is what I'm only going to do forever. Mark and Tom, I know, like we've talked about this a little bit, Mark, on the property management side, you're always having to reinvent yourself. I think that makes a good business person, man, woman, whatever, is someone that's the ability to pivot. It's been a consistent theme for us, and I'm not saying we've done it perfect, nor have we timed it right, if there's such a thing. But I think that's what it is. Like we pivoted from, we were going to be buying and selling and doing the thing on, you guys remember the Montelongos? They were on HGTV.
Yeah.
I love that. They were the best. I loved their buying and selling, and they had such a theatrical approach to doing it, right? That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to buy, have this awesome remodel, right? And this end result that just looked amazing. But we did that until the market couldn't bear it and we lost money. We said, okay, do we do that again? Or do we try something that the market needs now? And so we went that route. And at that time, it was short sales. So my point is, in my opinion, I think that what we do well at Kendall Partners and the theme we have in the business with our entire team is that we have to have the ability to pivot. My job as the visionary and the owner to make sure I can see that thing, whatever it is, way out ahead of us, tomorrow, a year, whatever. And then we have to adjust fire. But I think there's a speed to that pivot. So Tom, back to your question about 2012, we went back into remodeling, we went back into fix and flip. We bought under value. Most of them.
So are you doing mailers here? How are we, or is this just picking off MLS?
Yeah, we were picking on MLS. There was really nothing proprietary or, secret. That's not a very good book to write. How I buy houses on the MLS at a discount. It just became kind of a numbers thing where we were just looking for the value add type opportunities. And we weren't just looking here in Kendall County. We were buying in Will and DePage and Kane and Cook and Lake. So we were pretty spread out, saying we'll go where the opportunity's at. So from 2000 and really 10 or 11 through 2019, we continued to buy, fix and flip, remodel and resell. We were doing 5 a year and then 10 a year, and then we just continued to grow. And then it came less about Kevin and I, and we were having to be better hirers and recruiters and leaders and owners. And, we had our first meeting with other people besides him and I, right? So it's just this journey really of like, how do we become better in business, but how do we become better at business as leaders and owners? And how do we build a good team? Again, going back to that long range thinking, how do we find good people? And you guys know this from having businesses. How do you find good people and continue to, retain talent? I'm not an expert there. I just know that if you can find really good people, pay them fairly, give them their work-life balance that everybody wants, whatever that is to them, and grow with them. We've got people here that have been here a decade over. So they've been along for several pivots of Jeff's pivots, but they would also say, I think if you talk to them individually, that's been my job, is to say, here's what we need to do next to be successful, because this is going to close down. Short sales really did, right? They became kind of mainstream. Every broker was offering it. And so we just kept remodeling and redoing and re-innovating, and got to a point where we were fix and flipping about 50 houses a year. And that was a pretty big project for us. I mean, these are big remodels, permitted, Glenview, Deersfield, North Shore stuff, Skokie. We probably owned 40 or 50 houses in Wheaton and Glen Ellen, just these good areas with good schools, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 jobs, remodels. And we did that until we realized that this is really a construction business. So, which is good, but it's messy.
Let me go a layer deeper on the pivot conversation, because I think, I like the term, what the market provided us. And that's one thing I like about real estate. That's how we got through the downturn too. It's like, all right, well, this is run and drive. We got to move over here. And there's always different ways to make money. That's awesome. But what's your opinion and your thought on how much effort you put into something? Maybe someone's listening, they want to get into wholesaling, or they want to get into fix and flip, or they want to buy, like, a lot of people give up after a short term. Like, some people say you need 10,000 hours to master something, like, or was it 500 or something like that, whatever the hours is. But what's your thoughts on that? Like, how much time does someone have to give something before it really doesn't work? How much effort do they have to put out, and how much time do they have to give? Like to say this didn't work for reasons that were outside of myself?
That's a good question. And I think everyone's, asking themselves at a different point in their lives, I'm guessing. They want to do part-time. They want to, I mean, what's the word everybody uses now? The side hustle type approach, a little bit on the side after my full-time. Or, maybe they want to do it full time. Maybe they were in a position like me where they took an opportunity to go after something and say, this is going to be my journey, my career. Now, easy to say, again, when you don't know what that looks like when you get there. But yeah, I think it goes back to the kind of that core value that you have that I have, maybe of the grit and the commitment. But I think, is your business plan, whether that be wholesaling or property management, or flipping, all these kind of niches that you can get into within, even just single family real estate, is what you're doing viable, or are you trying to do something new? Let's face it, right? People that are wholesaling, or people that are, and by wholesaling, I mean that by saying buying under market and then flipping the contract and then taking a cut at close. Fix and flip, the ones that are buying under market and then adding value and then trying to price themselves probably towards the top and grab everything they put in plus. But I think if that's your business model, if that's something that you feel like is viable, then I think you've got to try it. And then you've got to probably try it again. If you fall on your face the first time, should you quit? Now, I don't know. Most people that hear, Tom, to your point about us losing 55,000, I only say that to say, I'd rather tell the story of failure and how we can continue to push. Because I'll be honest, and Kevin, my business partner, would admit this. He's like, I can't afford to do this. I got to go back to work. And it was an actual conversation that I didn't know how to lead through, besides saying, I don't have another option either, Kevin. Because I've told myself I'm not going to, and I won't accept defeat. That's just my personality. At some point, we all give in. But I'm like, I'm going to get it, man. Like, tell me I can't. And my wife said, hey, I believe in you. Let's try it. And I needed her support. But so I think you position yourself with people that can help you. I think, again, going back to the pivot of the theme of pivoting mentality, the other thing I think that we have that I think other people should think about is how, in my opinion, real estate is a team sport. It's really hard to do things on your own. Even if you're just a broker, if you want to do something at volume, whatever that is for you or scale, it's really hard to do it when you're up late at night trying to burn the candle at both ends. Ask me how I know. It only works until you get so burned out and you really hate what you're doing. I don't think that's what we signed up for as entrepreneurs. So I think realizing you're going to need support. And I know when you start, it's hard to say, I need a team of 5 to get going, right? You got to prove to yourself this is going to be successful, and then you got to try and then make some money and hopefully, but it's going to take some long hours. You're going to need to be committed. But I still feel like, again, you need to have a Mark or a Tom or some type of mentor that there's people out there that will coach you through this. And will they want something for it? Maybe. Can you negotiate that? Probably. But is it worth it to you to get the $25,000 education, whether that's you paying me as a consultant or you paying a college to teach you? Is it worth it if you could take that and 10x it? I did. You know, I mean, we've bought 1,000 houses since my little Nouveau Riche story. So, and we haven't done it all right, and it hasn't all been perfect. I'm just saying we kept going with it. And the story is you start off small and then you just incrementally continue to grow. And I've never had a mentality of like, we're going to 10x this. I'm trying to raise a family too. 4 kids, wife of 20 years. We're trying to be involved with our kids. So you when you mesh those two together, how do you grow a successful business and not lose it all at home? Because I know for a fact I don't want that. I've talked to you, Mark. You don't want that. Tom, I'm guessing you don't want that, right? We want to. How do you do both? How do you crush it at both? So I'm still trying to figure it out. By the way, I don't have the answer, but it's just being aware of, you know, of trying to maintain a successful business and grow your family.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So Jeff, let's talk about, 1,000 transactions, right? Because, you only really need a couple good transactions to set yourself up, right? We tell our listeners that all the time. Like a couple good deals here or there can really just set you up for success. So doing 1,000 for most people, that's mind blowing, right? And you can see it for those who aren't on the list, on your guys' inventory list, and we'll link to that in the show notes. I mean, there's constantly a dozen opportunities on there, right? Like it's not just 1 or 2 deals. Like there is constantly just all over the Western burbs and elsewhere, just a lot of opportunity. But I guess let's talk about this, the scaling aspect and just finding those opportunities. It sounds so easy. Like, oh, we had short sales, we picked off there. Like, how are you doing that today? Like, can you give us an idea, or if you're comfortable sharing numbers, like,
oh yeah,
what do you spend on marketing? What do you spend on mailers? Are you doing TV? Like, Blake McCrite's a close friend of both me and Mark. And
yes,
he spends, I think 30, 40 grand a month just to have that funnel coming in. And it's kind of mind blowing numbers when you think about it. And he's like, I'm a marketing, I sell real estate, but I'm a marketing company. That's what we do.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. There's several different pieces there. Again, this is just Jeff's opinion as I represent the team. So I keep saying that because I think there's 1,000 ways to, as my dad used to say, skin a cat. I don't know if that's PC anymore, but it's true. It's like you can do things a many different ways. So there's not just one path. We've chosen a path, we've stuck to it, but again, we've pivoted along the way it's never like this. We're just continuing to adjust fire. And then, as you guys know, when you start to figure something out, the market changes, right? All those things that you thought you could control, and then the Fed raises rates, and look where we're at. 2 years ago, we were at 3.5%. Now we're at 8%. I don't know that anybody was planning on that. I wasn't. I guess I'm not that forward thinking. But I wanted to end the story though when I talked about the fix and flip in 2019. We ended up buying multifamily, some small buildings. That's what that was Kevin and I's goal when we first started. We really wanted to build something long term. That would be that. I think the sexy word is the mailbox money, right? Having that passive income, active income, and having that passive income, some depreciation, et cetera. So we bought some buildings, owned and operated them. I felt that because of the nature of Kindle Partners and the business, it honestly wasn't going all that well in 2018. We had some rough times. We lost $70,000 on one house, and then about 2 weeks later, lost another $65,000. And they didn't just surprise us, right? We felt them coming, but then when you go to close and you have to make it right? That's when it all hits. And Aaron, who you guys know on my team, used to define those meetings in the office as funeral meetings. That's how bad it was. And even though he's total core values, the dude is so awesome and loyal. It was a hard time for us. So I feel like I should share that because it hasn't been for Kindle Partners just a straight line up. It's been these bumps along the way that we've had. Again, it sounds cliche, but pivot and readjust because we still have the mentality of this is what we're doing. We're going to figure it out. So in 2019, we've always mailed mailers, right? We've always sent out letters. I used to think scale was like, 2 letters a day. I'd be like, oh my gosh, we did so much mailing last month. We did 60 letters, We had a business coach that said, well, how are you guys attributing the success of your direct mail, right? And I'm like, well, we got a deal in Wheaton where we bought and sold and made $101,000. And this guy was in Boulder, Colorado. And he said, he was our business coach for about 8 years. And if you don't have a coach and you're listening and you want to be in real estate, you should probably find one that's maybe ahead of you a bit, in my opinion. He looked down and said, wait a second, what did it cost you to mail that letter? I said, yeah, they're about $1 a piece. We've got Kevin's sister that mails them out for us. And he said, how much did you make? I said, about $100,000 net profit. And he said, how many of those could you mail out? You know where I'm going with it, right?
Yeah.
He's like, how many of those could you actually do? I said, oh, there's tons of opportunity, right? This is back in 2012, 2013. And it wasn't clicking for Kevin and I. I mean, he was saying, go scale it. What you have this thing. There's not a lot of companies and businesses out there that can send out $1 marketing piece. And I know it's not that simple and make $100,000. His point was like, why couldn't you 10x your mailing? Isn't that only $600 a month? So I say that to say, Blake McCray, him and I have talked several times about marketing. Yes, he knows his marketing. I think he's really good at that. He understands that he is a marketer. I think every small business and every business in general is a marketing company. How can you not be at some level? But in 2019, we decided to take that advice that we got years prior and really put that into work. And so we started spending $4,000 and $5,000 a month, PPC, direct mail. And then we had some success, right? You're attributing to see what kind of return you'll get. We were in about the 7 and 8x return, right? Spend $10,000, you make 80. Wasn't quite that clean, but over 90 days, that's kind of how it worked out. 2021, 2022, we were spending more. We got into that $30,000 and $40,000 a month. Last year, we averaged about $65,000-ish a month. Yeah, there's no secret sauce here. I mean, we spend a lot of money. I shouldn't say we spend. It really is an investment. If the places you're getting quality leads from give you a return, then it's not an expense, right? It actually is the top of our funnel, and it's the fuel for our business. Because of the nature of our business, I would say we are a direct seller marketing business. We buy houses off market right from homeowners right in their living room. We provide that service of speed and convenience, and we'll close, right? Because we're not wholesalers. We actually fund our transactions and we take title. But we spend about $150,000 a month currently. We're on TV. We've got a lot of pay-per-click, 50, 60, 80, maybe $70,000 of pay-per-click going on. So we've got a lot of traffic there, a lot of SEO, which is organic, which takes time. As you guys know, that's not something you do tomorrow. You start tomorrow and you're hoping it pays you in 2 years. But we started 4 or 5 years ago pretty serious about it, and we get quite a few organic generated leads. And then direct mail, we do a lot of direct mail. We send about 90,000 pieces a month. And that's to several different lists that we probably won't go into on this call. We can, but to those folks that we think are in a position to sell, and they're not all desperate, foreclosure, right? We don't have a lot of that right now. Everybody's got equity. So that is what we do. It really is a marketing and sales business. And so we spend that money because we have a very clearly defined, we call it the lead funnel. How many leads does it take us to get a contract, an appointment, et cetera? We know our numbers really, really well. And so, Tom, you'd asked, how do you know, or to the person that hasn't done this? I think in anything isn't if you you try it, and if you have success and you make a few bucks, like in this business, your confidence goes up. And then as you have more confidence, you decide you can make a decision more clearly, and you could say, I can put more gas on that fire. And that's all we've done really, is we've tried to scale with good people and good marketing, and we just are learning how those two work together, so we can buy hundreds of houses a year.
So does the bottom of your funnel look like 1.5%, 2%? Is that kind of reality of actual, what you send out versus how many the deals flow?
Oh, what do you mean? Say that again.
For the bottom of your funnel of the actual, they call it deals you close on. Yeah, conversion rate. Yeah, I guess the bottom of it. I know there's a whole bunch of numbers in between of how many callbacks you get and how many appointments you get, but like the bottom, what does that translate to?
I'll tell you right now. I'll say in 2019, we just had this conversation this morning. It took us about 25 leads to buy a house. I didn't know if that was good. I didn't know if that was bad. I just knew that's what it was. And so I was proud of ourselves because we are data nerds. We like clean information. We're pretty disciplined in tracking everything. We use Salesforce. We spend a lot of money in technology. We've got a full-time marketing and data person in-house. I say that to say I feel like we know our numbers so that because we're disciplined there, as we have more confidence, we can make better decisions and use that money, $150,000 a month, that investment. I just know that the $150,000 a month we spend today in this business, because of our cash conversion cycle, that probably pays us December, January, right? So we have to be ahead of it enough because we're not wholesaling necessarily because of our model. We're buying, taking properties down. But to answer your question, Mark, directly, it was about 25 leads to a deal. Now it's about 10. I think we can get better. I'm not sure how much better, but it takes about 10 qualified seller leads. And I mean, by qualified, I mean, I have a house to sell. I'd like to talk to you. We don't really go 10 layers deep. We just say, okay, you're interested in selling? We'll come see you. And it takes about 10 of those for us to buy a house.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy the other day, wants to get into, I was trying to explain to a guy the sales funnel of wholesaling. He was looking to get into it. And he's the same mentality, like, yeah, I said a couple hundred. I'm like, man, but that's just your top of your funnel. And you're going to go down and you're going to have to tweak your message and test your message. If your message doesn't work on this one, you have to redo it. And then you're going to have to, once you go down a notch your funnel, then the guy's calling back. Is that the guy that sucks calling him back? Is his message right? You got to get that script. Like there, when you really get into, which I'm guessing you've got this all drilled down. I'm assuming there's a lot of, what you're building in is predictability. Going to spend, you're not saying I'm going to spend 150,000 and I hope. You're saying I'm going to spend 150,000 and I'm going to get back. Like that's kind of where you're at right now.
Hey, you guys probably can't see it, but on the top of my board up there, it says consistent and repeatable. I rewrite that in a different color all the time in a different way because it's a constant reminder to me and to the team or anybody that comes in my office that sees that's really what we're trying to do. And I think that's what we all strive to do in business is that's something repeatable. The sexy word is scalable. I think that's true, but it's consistent so that you can make better predictions. If you knew that if you bought $100,000 worth of quality leads or $10,000, but that number's too big, I don't know, $10,000 a month, and it produced X, and you did it over 90 days consistently, does that not build your confidence to go do the same or more? And not everyone wants to do more. I don't think you need to do more just to do more because that does cause other issues. Mark, we've talked about personnel and process, and that is the other side of the business that people don't love to talk about because it's not near as sexy as saying how much do you spend and how much do you make. But in those numbers, right? Everyone on our team has a spot. How many leads? We got lead managers. We've got acquisition managers. We've got 20 people, 7 cars on the road driving 30,000 miles a month. So it's a operation for us that we're continuing to grow. People we're hiring for 3 positions now, but our confidence too has continued to increase. All the while, we're watching this crazy market and trying to figure that out. So we're still rolling those dice, if you will, of confidence by saying we're going to continue to grow.
Let me take your business another layer deeper. You and me on the last call, and we kind of got rushed at the end because I did not think the conversation was going, but we started talking about predictive index. You have marketing down to a science. You actually use a tool to try to get your hiring down to a science. That your team matters, right? And the right people on the team. And a lot of people think like, oh no, I got buddies, we can all do that. That usually just doesn't get you past a couple million. I made Tom take the test and like our whole group or the assessment and all that. Tell us what the predictive index is and kind of how you used it to shape your company.
Well, I got to know first, Mark, I asked you, but what was your profile? Do you remember?
I'm a adapter. So I'm highest A, I go B just to the left of the line, then C, then I'm right over the line negative at D. So I'm a chameleon.
No kidding. So you could be objective or subjective. We could go either way.
So you never know what you're going to get with me. My partner says it. I think he says that in a negative tone. But
okay, so you're Jekyll and Hyde. Tom, what about you?
No clue. Mark made me take a test. I haven't looked at it since.
Yeah, but I on there I paired them up with our other people on our team to see how we all work together. I get those things. So
I think I'll go back and I'll explain it this way. And this is just from Jeff and Kevin's perspective at Kendall Partners. I think the predictive index is a behavioral assessment. and and don't quote me on the time frame, but they've been around since 1960, let's say. So they've been doing this from a behavioral science standpoint, using all of this data of who Mark is and how Jeff operates and what Tom does and what he thinks. And basically it's like, here's who you are, and here's they've put 17 different profiles. That's why I asked Mark and Tom who they might be on the profile chart. I'm a
Tom's a venturer. So he's got his A is like 3. He's actually 3 segments to the right. He's like crazy high A, which is really good.
Yeah, I'm a maverick.
What does that mean?
I'll tell you what that means. So going back to that profile, the behavioral assessment, though, here's why it's important, I think. If you're looking, you should know your own. I think it's an amazing tool, and you could use DISC, and you could use Myers-Briggs. You could use, there's a lot of Find Your Mojo. Find Mojo is one of those ones that you can have people take the assessment. It helps you as let's say the employer, determine how they're motivated, which is key. We all think, or a lot of us think, that people are motivated just by money, and that's so far from the truth. My experience, that's not the case. We all need to make a living, but not everybody comes to and gets up in the morning and says, I cannot wait to go. If you're sales, that's what you think about. But if you're the receptionist or the bookkeeper or the transactions coordinator, you're not thinking about that, right? So behavioral assessment allows us to understand people's profiles and obviously their behavior, and then how they act. And then once you get to know your positions within your company, like, for instance, I would not make a good bookkeeper. I'm pretty good with money. I've got good financial sense. I'm very disciplined, but I could modify to be a bookkeeper, but for about 2 days, because I actually can't sit in front of the computer and crunch numbers and tie things out. I just couldn't do it, right? So I would do it because it's my business. But if you hired me to do it, I would do it for you for a little bit, and then I would just want to, jump out in traffic. So as you line these profiles up, you can put them in certain positions that make sense. EOS, Mark teaches us right person, right seat, RPRS, and it's so true. Jim Collins talks about his bus analogy. It's right people on the bus, right people in each seat. So just imagine everyone getting on the bus. All these people you think are good people that you want to have, your brother and your cousin, your dad. I want to employ them because I trust them, and they're all on the bus, but are they in the right seat doing the right thing for the business? The predictive index software tool allows us to assess our own and incoming people. And again, as you build confidence and you see people in certain seats, it makes sense not to put a maverick as a bookkeeper, not to put, let's say, maybe an adapter. Mark, you might have an interesting personality when it comes to sales. You could probably do both. Tom, you would probably be a pretty good salesman. You're a venturer, you're a high A. So you like to engage with people probably, but you might always be looking for a better way of doing things because you're very innovative. And so you may like to look for the next shiny thing, if you will, the venturer profile. It doesn't mean it's 100% true, but what I do when we get people the predictive index and they take it, it gives them this report, right, Tom, that you've got. And then I always ask them, hey, read page 2, and it talks about how you can be managed and who you are. And I want to know as a percentage how accurate it is. And I've never had, of a couple hundred assessments, I've never had anybody tell me less than about 90%. And I said, there's no wrong answer. I don't, and then I'll ask them like this, because most of our people are married. I'll say, go ask your spouse. And they'll say it's 95% or 100%. I said, well, that's the answer. Right. So once you put all your people on this behavioral assessment, you can figure out how you guys collaborate as a team. Because when you have, as you know, Mark, if you have 15, 18, 20, 50 people, it's really important. If your goal is to drive and maintain a really strong culture, you got to know how people work together, because different profiles, like we got 3 different profiles on this call, and we all have different personalities. So how do we get along together and really work together and row in the same direction? Well, that's what you want for an organization. So I can't recommend PI enough. It's a tool. It costs a few bucks. If you're a one-man band, you don't need it. If you want to get an assessment done, call me and I'll do your assessment for free. But if you're a team of 10 or 5 and you're looking to grow, I would seriously look into having something similar to that, if not PI.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too. I've ran it for a few of my friends. They're like, hey, we're going to get into business together. And I run it for both of them. And I say, this is where you guys are going to run into issues. This is where you guys are going to succeed. Or you guys should just not be partners in this venture.
Did you put them on the 1-to-1 ratio?
Yeah, the 1-to-1 ratio. You do that.
I did it with my wife and I, and I mean, we married 21 years, so we know, but it pulls out things that it's like, this is where you're going to have it. She's an analyzer. She needs like 17 points of information, and then she wants to double check things 3 times. I love her for that. But when you're having a conversation and I'm quick and fast, she's like, slow down. We're not making that decision right now. And I'm like, come on, let's move on.
Awesome. All right, man. We're coming up on an hour here. We got to wrap. Any final thoughts on kind of what the future looks like for your business and for kind of the Chicago market?
Yeah, for our business, we're going to continue to push and grow. I think the need for a service like ours, where we can provide homeowners with a reasonable cash option to sell their house quickly on their time frame, where we pay all their closing costs, I think that continues to grow. We're currently buying in about a 240, 250 house per year clip. I think that as we continue to improve, maybe we'll settle into right there. I'm honestly working on the next 2 or 3 year plan. I don't love a 5-year plan in real estate. I think it's good to have that big, hairy, audacious goal. But I think in real estate, 18 months seems like forever. Again, going back to you getting everything perfect and then the market changing because of election year or economics or whatever. So we're going to continue to grow. And so anybody listening to this, if they're looking for an opportunity, if they've got experience, we love great people. And I think we treat them well. And we'd love to talk to good folks. So if they're looking, come on and give us a shout.
That's all you can do.
Pass the assessment.
To be prepared. All right, cool. Let's wrap then. You ready?
Yep.
All right. What's your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do all this while so many others wish they could?
Long range thinking, building a team, because we know we can't do it on our own. But also getting out of their way, letting them do it, creating a winnable game, and then giving them the tools to be successful. So I think that's a competitive advantage, is just knowing that you need a strong team to continue to build off of. And so otherwise you're always going to be doing the thing.
Yep. Jeff, what's one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
I would say find some help. You guys, this podcast, you can learn a lot of stuff on the internet, but it's not all true. That's why it's free. But I would say find a mentor. There's a lot of guys out there, gals out there that they'll provide some support. Even just someone looking over your shoulder to say, I would look at that. I would look at this. A mortgage officer that a bank friend, someone that has some financial sense, a contractor. I mean, let's be honest, they're critical to what we do. A property manager. I mean, look at GC and Mark, and you need these guys that understand the local market, because Tom, as you mentioned before we got on here, the downtown Chicago market, let's call it, versus the suburb market is just two different beasts. And I think you need to know what you're doing in the area you're doing it. I don't know that I do all that well being a virtual buyer. Because we buy houses, we actually take title. So I want to know what we're buying and understand it.
All right. What do you do for fun?
I am competitive, being the Maverick profile. So I still play basketball. I get out there and do anything competitive. I love to fish, love to hang out with my family. We love to travel. We got a big 40-foot diesel RV we travel the country in. And we love to get out and see new places. And if there's ever a hike to go on, I'm on it. I love that stuff.
Nice. All right. Give us a good book, podcast, or self-development activity you'd recommend to our listeners.
Well, being a Christian, I would say the Bible is probably number 1 and number 2. I've got 3 right here. This isn't staged. 7 Habits, Highly Effective People. I love it. I think Bern Harnish's book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And if you're a personal finance guy and have any discipline, I think this book can change the game. Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. For me, those things are, it's how you want to set up your financial and your legacy. I think those are great books, great tools.
Awesome. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to other investors.
Personally recommend. I would say, you guys know these guys. We've used Renovo quite a bit for some finance needs. Again, I think those are great guys over there. They got a good team, but they're in that kind of hard money lending space. But they've got this local feel, so it's a little bit different than your cutthroat or mom and pop hard money. They've got a very good process dialed in, so you know what you're getting. And I'd also say attorney. We use Gary Davidson, Castle Law. It's been vital to our growth. They're growth minded as well. So finding people that are also growth minded, otherwise they'll just not grow with you and kind of hold you down. So one attorney and one finance partner is critical in this business, I think.
There you go.
Very good. Gary Davidson, episode 79, Renovo's been on, 10 different times. We'll just give you workman's cell.
Oh yeah, I know, Eric. We were just golfing last week, so Eric knows, and I wanted to give him a shout out. They've been great to us for the last. It's a fairly new relationship, in being only 40, 50 miles away, without being in the Collective Genius, which is a group of real estate investors we're in. I'm not sure I would have actually met them. So that's the power of networking, and Mark and you guys have been great about making connections. I mean, it really has been. You find good people and they'll spread the word. And I think that the reciprocity, I think, is awesome. And I think that's important.
Yep. All right, Jeff, thank you so much. You provided a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Yeah, I think you could check out our website. I mean, if you had opportunities for us to look at, if someone out there had a deal locked up or thinks they might have a deal, I wouldn't say we'll partner necessarily in the traditional sense, but we would work with you and see if we can actually buy that house or a portfolio and work in a fee for you. We're not asking people to work for free, but we're discreet, we're professional, and we take referrals very serious. So we'd love the referrals of deals, and to work with. We probably only work with half a dozen companies, quite honestly, just because we're very protective about the information and who we're kind of hitching our wagons to. So we'd love to talk with others about deals, and if we can help in any way, our team would.
All right, awesome. All right, Chicago Fact Time.
Who are we playing for?
Playing for Joe Jensen. I actually went to school with Joe Jensen. I don't think it's the same person though. But today's sponsor is GC Realty Development. If you need property manager, call GC. But Joe, if myself or Jeff gets this question right, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by GC.
All right. So I know you guys are located out in Yorkville. And when I think of Yorkville, I think of, as a kid, Raging Waves. So Raging Waves has been open since 2008. How many water slides are there at Raging Waves? And your options are 10, 21, 32, or 47. How many water slides are there at Raging Waves? I knew you woke up ready for this one.
I mean, can you even verify this? Can you drive?
It's on the internet.
As you were
Google Earth, man.
I'm actually waiting for someone to call me out so they can start doing these facts.
Funny enough, our office is about a half mile. Raging Waves is just right here. So we're just
look out the window. Start counting.
Look out the window, man. I'm gonna go with 32.
1, 2. What was your B and C?
10, 21, 32, or 47?
32.
Go with
32. Way to nail it, guys.
We got it?
You got it. Woo!
All right. 21 seemed weak and 47 seemed crazy. Like,
you can't be the biggest and have 10 slides. Come on.
Yeah. Like the park just got
6-minute abs.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Joe, get a $50 gift card brought to you by GC Realty Development. Jeff, thanks for coming on today. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, check out Build Your Team. StraightUpChicagoInvestor.com. Build Your Team. Jeff talked a lot about today about team and having the right team in place. We have a whole team on there for you if you want to check it out. Probably end up adding some additional resource on there like Jeff as well too. So check it out. Jeff, thanks for coming on. Tom, thanks as always. And listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Thanks all.
Yeah.